bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to nope. Not that. Sorry, a little bit of technical issues there. We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate everybody for tuning in this morning. Sorry, give me 1 second here. We are trying to get caught up with the day. So, with that being said, excuse me. Appreciate you guys for all joining me here. We are on this new morning time. I am a few minutes late. Apologies again. A little bit of technical issues. But it is a good day to be here. Let's get started. So, it is the NBA playoffs. It's the majority of our show today. And one of the things I think we need to talk about is we have been in this best player versus best team era, I feel like, for quite a while now, where we are so used because of some of the all-time greats that have played in the NBA. Magic, Bird, Michael, Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, Steph, KD, that we feel like your best player should just dictate that if you have the best player or a Pantheon level guy, that means you should be going to the finals, making these really deep runs. Even someone who I'm not quite as high on, but a lot of people think are one of the best players maybe we've ever seen in Luka Doncic, that he got the Mavs to the finals last year. And I just don't think that's the way it's going to work this year. And I'm saying this with my mind, even though I'm going to have an opinion later when we go through our bracket. My heart says a little bit differently. And that's because, and I've said this a bunch, we have to separate who the all-time greats really are and everybody else. Meaning, not everybody is Michael Jordan. Not everybody is LeBron James, Kobe, Shaq, Michael, Magic. And that the best teams, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics, those are the teams that are actually going to make the biggest difference. Those are the teams that are going to have the most success in the playoffs. Not the best player, not just the guy who's the most dominant, etc., etc. And so, yes, while we're used to, even over the last handful of years, Jokic making his run with Denver, Giannis making his run with Milwaukee, LeBron's last run with the Lakers, those are going to become few and farther apart because we just don't have those guys anymore. And those guys can be canceled out by truly how impactful the three-point shot has become. I think Giannis and Jokic could average 30, 10, and 10. And I think they could still get 20, 33s hit on them by the Celtics or the Thunder or another one of these great teams, and it's going to totally disqualify them. Doesn't matter how great they are. You're not going to be able to outscore another team if that other team is much better. Jokic is unanimously the best player in the Western Conference. Does anyone think Denver's seriously making a big-time run, especially considering Michael Malone being fired here just a few weeks ago, or about a week and a half before the playoffs start? Is anyone expecting Giannis, who's had an amazing last couple regular seasons and an amazing last few weeks of the regular season post-Dame going out with injury? Do we expect Giannis to get Kyle Kuzma to the NBA Finals? Again, we got so spoiled because LeBron was taking all of these really just should not be their Cavs teams, and he was getting them to the finals year after year. He was getting them in these deep playoff runs. Again, Jokic carried the Nuggets a few years ago. Giannis got the Bucks there to a title. But the best teams, the Boston Celtics, who say what you want about Jason Tatum, and I know there's a bunch of conflicting opinions on, is he top 5? Is he top this? Tatum and his team, the Celtics, as long as Jaylen Brown's knee is good, they are going to walk through the Eastern Conference, maybe their only competition being the Cavaliers, who are a great team. Again, they don't have a all-time legendary superstar. They have a great team. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Yes, SGA is going to be an MVP, but SGA is not an all-time legendary player. But they have him, Williams, Chet. They have the best team in this playoffs. So when you're comparing them to another team like the Bucks, they're clearly a better team than the Bucks. They're clearly a better team than even what the Lakers have with Luka and LeBron. And I know Luka just got here last year doing that. I'm aware. But what really made the Mavs run last year special and what allowed them to get all the way to this point was the fact that their bigs were playing defense. Their bigs were getting more involved in the offense. The team around Luka was playing much better, not just, Luka was winning games. Yes, Luka was obviously important. Luka was scoring a bunch of points. But LeBron's out of his prime. Giannis isn't that kind of guy. Jokic, while he is an all-time great, he's not going to be able to do it for him either. The best teams are the ones right now that are set up for success. The best teams are the ones that are set up to win. You're not going to see a LeBron go 38-8 throughout the playoffs. That's good enough to get you and pull your team and drag them to the NBA Finals. You're not going to see a Michael Jordan-esque playoff run. You're not going to see Kobe and Shaq dominantly. Like, those days we're going to start to see get farther and farther apart. And you're going to see teams like the Celtics. You're going to see teams like the Thunder, what they're building in Houston, what the Cavaliers have. We're going to start seeing these teams winning titles. And that's a transition for the NBA. That's never been the case for the NBA. Let's also, as we segue here, and we're going to see this again when we do a playoff bracket. We're not acknowledging any play-in teams. And the NBA's got to do something about this. Because the one thing you don't want, I know we want more intrigue and more storylines and more competition, and that's great. And giving teams and fan bases hope because their team is the 9 seed and they're maybe just a game out of the 8 seed, and so that means they're going to be in the play-in, they're going to have a chance to go to the playoffs. We got to stop it when the disparity is as big as it is, especially in the Western Conference this year. The Mavs and the Kings are the 9-10, and they have zero chance. Look, you already have 1 to 2 teams every single playoffs, every single postseason that's just drawing dead. They have no chance to win a title, and that is generally the 7 or 8 seed. Even in these years that you want to go back and we all love to glamorize as, oh my gosh, look how competitive the West is. Look how great the West is when the 8 seed is 50 wins or close to it. The 8 seed is almost always drawing dead in both conferences to actually win the title. So why do we want to add more teams that are just drawing dead? Even if, let's say, the Kings did win the play-in and they did win, they won the whole play-in. They became the 8 seed. How quick would the Kings lose to OKC? If the Mavs were to win it, how quick do the Mavs lose to OKC? We, as sports fans, and I know the individual fan bases don't like to hear this, and trust me, I've been there. We want teams that actually have a chance. We want it to be intriguing. We want it to be competitive. We don't want sweeps. We don't want teams that are clearly outmatched. You know, this has been my thing with the Bulls the last couple of years. Why are the Bulls in the play-in? The Bulls have the kind of roster where they need to start tearing stuff down, bringing guys in, move on. Like, you're not going to be competitive. You're not winning the title. Like, let's get more interesting teams. Let's get more intriguing matchups. And when you have such a disparity between where the Grizzlies just fought the whole last second half of the season, they got off to a slow start, still got close to 50 wins. Them and the Timberwolves are going back and forth. Timberwolves get to the 6th seed. Grizzlies are still the 8. And now the Grizzlies got to play teams that aren't even 500 to make the playoffs? Like, that's not what we wanted. The NFL had this problem. And this has come from someone who, my team benefited off the NFL having a 7 seed. But it's a better storyline and it's more intriguing when you have the team that was just so close but didn't quite make the postseason. That team who was the best team to not make the playoffs is more interesting and better for the league because that's this team you get to start following the next year of can they take that next step. We all talk about gradually in the playoffs how teams take steps. They make the playoffs, then they have a semi-deep run, then they have a really deep run, and they potentially win a title. Those same kind of steps exist before you get into the postseason. You start building a culture, then you get really close to the playoffs, then you get in the playoffs, and boom, then you take those next couple steps we just discussed. We don't need the Mavs. We don't need the Kings. We don't need these teams, the Bulls, the Heat. Like, none of these teams are serious to win a title. Most of these teams aren't even serious to win a game against the respective 1 or 2 seeds from either conference if they go all the way up to the 7. I know the 10 seeds can't, but if the 9 seeds technically get as high as the 7, the 10 seeds only get as high as the 8. Like, this is not what the additional playoff teams, the additional excitement, the additional fan bases, this isn't what we wanted. Nobody wanted this. So, NBA, can we please get rid of the play-in? The NFL, I would also say, like, the NFL could arguably get rid of the 7 seed, but Denver just won that, so not one to quite go there, but kind of works out the same. Giving us that team that's just so close. Their fan base is almost going to get them next year. We don't need these teams in the playoffs, though. The playoffs are for teams that, even if they don't have great chances, have realistic chances of being competitive. And none of these teams in the play-ins have a chance of doing that. Still a lot more here to come. Again, it is an NBA-filled episode today. Apologize for the late start and some of the technical issues to begin. Got a lot more stuff to talk about, including when we come back from the break. Stuff that is still not serious, as well as a check-in on a team that I just can't help but think is kind of overrated, but I'm part of the problem because I've overrated this team for a lot of their run. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in this morning. So, something we got to discuss, in my opinion, is a team that I know I've overrated the last couple of years, because we all do this thing as sports fans where when we've seen someone be great, it's always there in the back of our mind. So that even if they're no longer as great as they once were, we naturally give them the benefit of the doubt of, because we saw them at their peak, we kind of hold on to that image for a long time. One of these examples of this is in baseball right now. Is I want to get off the most egregious Mike Trout takes, saying Mike Trout is back, Mike Trout's still the best in the game, he's this, that, and the third, because I saw him for over a decade be easily the best player of my life. One of. It's like him, Ken Griffey, Bonds. Like, that's how great he was. And so because of that, I wasn't really willing to give up this, he is still the best player in the game, even though his injuries unfortunately just took him out of that conversation. And the reality is, I would love to say Trout's back. The Angels are hitting home runs. Trout is off to a great start to the season. But I know the second I say, Trout's back, he's right up there with Ohtani or Acuna, whoever you want to say is the best. He's going to, unfortunately, knock on wood, he's going to end up on the 60-day IL, and then I'm going to look stupid. And I just don't want to do that. But because I've seen how great he was for such a long period of time, it's hard for me to remove that image. I think right now we're having that with a certain team in the NBA. I think the Warriors are probably going to be the most overrated playoff pick. The Warriors, I feel like, because we all acknowledge how great Steph is, and we all know Steph is the greatest shooter ever. They had a dynasty. He's a top 10 to top 15 guy, somewhere in that range. All-time great, and one of the all-time great players to watch, just in terms of pure enjoyment value. He is up there with anybody. You want to take AI, Kobe, like he is up there with them as far as just truly enjoyable to watch play the game of basketball. You can't take that away from Steph. And Jimmy, who we've seen have these playoff runs with Miami, and playoff Jimmy is a thing, and we've seen him be great, and Draymond, who has the greatest publicist in the world, because I don't understand this defensive player of the year case, but now he's second, I think, to Evan Mobley, who should win the award. And so we've seen Draymond be great, we've seen Steph be great, and we've seen Jimmy be great in the playoffs, and they're getting a lot of momentum, and they're 23-8 since Jimmy got there, and 23-8 since Jimmy got there got them in the play-in. The Warriors, I think it is more likely, and I just need people to understand this, it is more likely the Warriors lose in the play-in than they even reach the conference finals. But they're going to be one of the trendiest picks. You're going to see a bunch of people pick them to upset teams. You're going to see I've seen people that think they can go all the way to the finals. And the reality is, they just can't. They just can't. This is when we've seen someone be great, it's just really hard to imagine when they're truly over the hill. We do this in life. Think of older relatives, your parents, an uncle, an aunt maybe that you think very highly of. And at some point, a little bit of the greatness, a little bit of the shine just starts to wear off. You might not want to admit that immediately. And with the Warriors, Steph is amazing. The fact he's this great at this age, it's him, KD, LeBron. They are some of the greatest aging superstars we've ever seen. Steph is still a defensive liability and has still had multiple nights this season where he looks not just human, he looks like a 37-year-old human trying to play the game of basketball, which is where you've seen the 4-point nights, you've seen multiple under 10-point nights. Yes, he has still had the 50-point games and he has still had those special performances, but he's not the same guy that was going toe-to-toe with LeBron in those 4 straight finals. He's just not. Draymond, yes, has had a good couple of weeks on defense. Draymond is not the defensive player of the year this year, nor is he the form of the guy who won defensive player of the year during the prime of his career. Jimmy Butler, who, again, playoff Jimmy had some great runs, made 2 finals with the Heat. He ain't that guy no more. Steve Kerr is a great coach, all-time great basketball life, Hall of Famer, all that stuff. He's not the coach in the conference. He's not the coach. He's not going to have the coaching advantage against potentially multiple playoff teams. J.J. Redick's a rookie, and there's going to be an argument that J.J. is going to be able to schematically be better than Steve Kerr in the year 2025. Yes, the Warriors are the dynasty of the 2010s, and that's always going to kind of be in the back of our mind as long as they still have Steph, Draymond, Kerr. But what the Warriors are actually more like is the last member of that dynasty who's no longer with the team, and that's Klay Thompson. Klay, we acknowledge, is over the hill. Klay, we acknowledge, is no longer as good as he used to be, whether it's defense, shooting, just as a player in general. And these other guys, just because if Klay is no longer wearing the jersey, it's easy to go, oh, it's like we do like with Celtics Shaq or T-Mac in a Spurs jersey. When we see these guys outside of their original jersey, it's easy for the luster to be taken off of them. Versus when they're still in that same jersey, we think, they look pretty good. Still, Steph had that one night. He looked like himself. The Warriors are not good enough to win a title. The Warriors might not be good enough to win a round in the playoffs, but they are going to be one of the trendiest picks. Just try to stop yourself from being one of those people. So it is that time. We do have to discuss the not serious of the day, which I already kind of alluded to the first one, and that's the 8 seeds plus the play-in teams. These teams, unfortunately, just are not serious. And the reality is, again, I get bringing more fan bases in, keeping them more excited for longer durations of the regular season. And there is something to that from both a fan perspective, a business perspective, marketing. But when we actually get to the real playoffs, when we actually get to teams that are going to matter, when we actually get to the games that are important, it don't matter. There's no, again, all of the 8 through 10 seeds, the teams that are available to get that seeding, they're drawing dead against OKC. They're drawing dead against Cleveland. They're drawing dead against any of the higher and upper echelon teams in the West or East. Like what are we doing, man? What are we doing? And you can't get rid of the actual 8 seed because the reality is that's the playoff format, 1 through 8. Top 8 teams make it. But it's with the mix with the plan, I feel like it even devalues it more. Again, if it was just the 8 seeds, fine. We've always had that. That's not going to look super weird to us. And the best team should win those series, so the 1 seeds winning isn't going to be some crazy deal or some big thing. But when you're involving now the 9 and 10 seeds in each conference, and they are essentially attached to that 8 seed as well, you get a mess. It's not going to be worth it. So the 8 seeds are, unfortunately, when it comes to playoff basketball, not very serious. No one's going to take them very seriously. I think we start getting serious teams. You start looking at the 6 seeds, whether it's the Timberwolves or the Pistons. Those are going to be the more teams that we're like, okay, maybe not title teams, but they are going to be serious playoff teams, especially for that first round. Another thing that's not serious to kind of to dump off on that, can we get the first round back to a best of 5? Like, we just don't need 7 games for the first round. The Celtics are better than the 7 seed tremendously. The Cavs are better than the 8 seed. Again, whoever's going to be there in that playoff, in that play-in playoff scenario, they are significantly better. You don't need 7 games to prove that. Same goes in the West. Like, the Rockets, I know they're young, but them and OKC are significantly, they're not, like, we don't need 7, 7, 7, and 7. Like, it used to just be 5 games in the first round, and it should go back to that. We don't need this many games to prove it. Yes, I know people they're going to be very picky, and this is going to be one of those years where they're going to be like, oh, well, the 8 seed this year is the Grizzlies, and like Ja's back, and we know all of the attention that's around him right now, but could he play? He's the guy who we know could get you 25 a night, and they got Jaren Jackson Jr., and oh my gosh, can they make a real run? They're going to play the Thunder. The Thunder are going to do what they've done, which is they've been the best team all regular season. They deserve the benefits of being the best team all regular season. And part of that benefit is they shouldn't have to go 7 games with the 8 seed. Part of the Rockets' benefit of being the team that broke away shouldn't have to go 7 games with the 7 seed. Like, it's just, we don't need it. And I'm not trying to just shit on teams that are these lower seeds all day today, but we want more exciting games. We want more memorable games. And we're not going to get these super memorable games, 1 8 seed, 2 7. So go back to the first round, best of 5. And it's going to get you more intrigue, honestly, in the long run, because you're going to have series that are more up in the air if I've only got to get to 3 wins to upset the team. So go back to best of 5 in the first round, please. And last but not least, not serious. This is normally where I do kind of take my shots at certain media personalities when I feel like there's just takes or things being said that are just way out of here. Jason McIntyre is a not serious person. So Jason McIntyre filled in for Colin last week, and I'm really curious what it's like to be Jason McIntyre and people around him when all you do is shoot off negative, negative, negative. Oh my gosh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. How could you do this? How could you do that? Of course, a few things will stick and a few things will land, because if you're just always negative and pessimistic, eventually you'll be right about some things. And his take has been, and this was trending, he's like, the Chiefs are not going to be a playoff team. Chiefs are not going to be a playoff team. And this is coming from a Chiefs hater, understandably so. I am a noted Chiefs hater. I have been down on the Chiefs. I was down on them all last year. I could not have predicted the Super Bowl, but trust me, I was excited about it. I was pleasantly surprised. That's the difference. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm aware of the greatness of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and what they have done in Kansas City, and that can't be taken away from them. He has been on the last 3 years, negative, 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 and they've won 2 Super Bowls, been to another one, even if it was a bad game. But then he's like, the Chiefs are not making the playoffs this year. You need another take. If you just, I don't think the Chiefs are going to be as great as they've been in the past, but if the only thing that you got is Chiefs suck, Chiefs suck, Chiefs suck, oh, they're going to be bad, they're going to be bad, they're going to be bad, oh, what have they done? Oh, their O-line's bad, oh, they got blown out in the Super Bowl. How many teams have been blown out in the Super Bowl? The answer is probably 25 to 28 teams would have been blown out in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were on an all-time playoff run, scored the most points in the NFL history in the postseason, and they were just dominating. They dominated everybody but the Rams. And if they played the Rams again, they might have dominated the Rams again to a similar score. But like when all you do is just fire, again, all you're going to do is fire off critical and negative takes, a few of them will hit. Skip has been right multiple times throughout the course of his career, and he just fires off negativity. So let's not, like, when I see trending takes like that of, wow, he said the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs. Yeah, you ever heard him say anything like good about anyone ever? He is negative to a fault, and he only gives credit when it's absolutely forced to, meaning he's going to look at this team and go, there was one good team this year in the NBA, and that's going to be whoever wins the title. And there's going to be one good team in the NFL, and that's whoever wins the title. And everybody else, he's just going to pick apart, be negative, be pessimistic. And those kind of people just aren't serious. Because it doesn't take anything to do. You don't have to be clever. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be informative. You don't have to be educational. Like, you just got to be negative. Not a serious person. Not a serious person whatsoever. When we come back, my favorite upset of the first round. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
you want to go the God route, you want to make it DBZ, fine. I don't think that's very interesting.
No, I agree.
And I think that like you can do these crazy like I think one of the things people hoped for with Boruto, and it was when we went to go see that movie years ago, and it's when we got like the manga announced and when they announced the show and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope was that it would go back to the roots of what made Naruto popular.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the creators didn't understand what made Naruto good. For us,
No,
there's
I
gonna
agree.
be an audience of people that want ass kicking. I just don't think it's the fun. Like, I don't think that's fun. Oh,
It's
wow, Boruto has hands. And I'm like, and me too, man. Like, I don't know. Like, like,
And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for joining in today. So, my favorite upset, right? And again, when we get to the top of the hour or the middle of the hour, top of our second hour, we start at the halfway point, is we're going to do fill in our own playoff bracket. I think the Pistons are set up to beat the Knicks. Now, I think the Knicks have a lot going for them in terms of if McCall Bridges is who he can be in the playoffs, him, Brunson, Cat, Josh Hart, the core of this team, I like a lot about the Knicks. But the Knicks are going to have a struggle, especially in the postseason. You're going to really see the part of Karl Anthony Towns that everybody struggles with, which is when people are physical with him, despite the fact that he's a 7-footer, he's almost 300 pounds, he's so skilled. When people are physical with him, there's struggles. And Jalen Brunson, even though he is a tough as nails, tough as hell player, he's still undersized, and people are physical with him, that can lead to struggles. Josh Hart and Bridges are not super refined offensive players, and so they're not going to lead you to winning series. They are guys who are role guys. They are guys who are great as support, but they can't be your best player. Otherwise, we're going to have issues. And so, with that being said, I think the Pistons, when you can line up Cade and you can if you can put Thompson as your lead defender on Brunson, and you can put Cade as your off-ball defender, most likely on Bridges, and you're able to play physical with Isaiah Stewart and their bigs against Cat, I think this is just going to be for those people that love or claim to love 90s basketball, this is going to be your series. I think this is going to be a low-scoring series, which I think also plays in the Pistons' favor because when you're a great point guard, it's not just putting up numbers. This is one of the arguments against Russ at his peak versus a guy like Chris Paul at his peak. Chris Paul, he's never going to have and has never had the total numbers that Russell Westbrook has had, but you could argue his impact has always been greater because he actually gets guys involved. He gets guys to play above their level of what they can actually play in the regular season because he's getting them involved. He's getting guys who maybe would average 15. He's getting up to 20 and 20 up to 25. We were talking about on group chat. Chris Paul made DeAndre Jordan the all-star starting center. Like, think about that. Steven Adams was never going to be the all-star starting center. And that is the difference in Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. So in a lower scoring series, which I think they will have, in a series you can be more physical and you have the better natural defenders, Thompson, Cade, and just the overall physical mentality of Detroit. J.B. Bickerstaff, who should get more recognition for Coach of the Year. And the overall I love what Detroit is building. Like, what Detroit is doing right now is some really cool stuff. Detroit is building a future contender. They've almost taken the Magic spot, whereas we saw the Magic last year, who were a great defensive team, weren't great on offense, but Paulo was an emerging superstar, was a guy who could get you, looked like he was going to be a guy who could get you 25 a night the rest of his career. But they took a step back this year. They're now in the play-in. Detroit took a step forward, and there's something to just guys who win. I've said this for the last couple of months. Cade is just a guy who wins. Thompson is just a guy who wins. There's a reason why we saw Detroit flip from how horrible the record was to how great the record is now. Like, some of these guys, there is winning culture here, there's winning players here, and that is different than guys who just put up numbers. And so what I think is going to be a slower series that Cade will be able to control, dominate. They're going to be able to put Thompson on Brunson. And Detroit just has, if you've been seeing, there's a stat graph that's going out because of how bad the Suns were this year. And it was the Suns put more in their three guys, Beal, Durant, Devin Booker, paid them $151 million a year, versus what the Pistons paid for their entire roster. And this is a roster. Like, they're not OKC, they're not Boston, but this is a good roster. They're going to be able to play 8 or 9 guys. And Bickerstaff, who one of his critiques is that maybe he played too many guys when he was with the Cavs. And so he's going to play his guys. He doesn't do the whole short rotation in the playoffs. And they're going to be able to outlast the Knicks. Again, I know I said series should go to 5 games, and I believe that. And if it was 5 games, maybe I would give the Knicks a better chance. But in the course of a 7-game series where it's going to be physical, you've got great defenders, you're going to have guys who can rotate, you've got a guy who can basically dictate and dominate the game in Cade Cunningham. I think this is going to be a series that we're looking up 2-2, and you're going to start to see the Knicks getting tired, because what's the problem with the Knicks? All these guys play super heavy minutes all season, and that's just who Tom Thibodeau is. And he's not going to change that, and he's not going to differ from that. And so, and this is what might eventually cost him his job for this third team, is playing these guys too long and not being able to have guys be healthy or guys who can go super long in the playoffs, because they basically play all regular season as if it is game 7 of the finals. So, and that works, and he gets the most out of his guys, but we've yet to see it work in the playoffs. So if I had to give one really good upset pick, it would be Detroit. I think Detroit is going to beat the Knicks. I think they've got better rotation. I think they're going to have more depth. I think they're going to be able to have physical, and I think they're going to be able to be physical, especially at the point of attacks with Brunson and with Cat. And so we're going to get into the bracket post when we come back from the break, but my favorite upset pick would be Detroit over New York. Sorry, New York fans, you can hate me later. This is HardFoul Radio. When we come back, we are unveiling our playoff bracket. This is HardFoul Radio. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate you guys for joining in. This is hour 2. So, we got to start. And I started off the show today talking about the best players no longer just being the guys that are going to win titles. That we are going to start transitioning out of the Giannis, Jokic, what LeBron was doing towards the end of his prime. Just a guy just manhandling his way through the playoffs and winning titles. I think we're going to start seeing more of an emergence of the best teams doing that. And so, with that being said, that's going to obviously reflect here in our bracket for the NBA playoffs. Excuse me. So, let's pull it up. Now, we've obviously got here, we're going to move ourselves around here real quick so that we can see both of us. So, boom, here we go. We are in the corner. Here we go. That way everyone can see. Oops. And let's move us down. Okay. So, we got to go here in the playoffs. I know I'm in the way slightly. I'll make myself even smaller. Boom. There we go. So, we got to go here through the NBA playoffs. As you can already see, both the 8 seed is undecided still on both. Don't worry. You guys know my take on how the play-in is going to go. It does not matter. The Thunder are whoever ends up as the 8 seed. The Thunder are winning the first round. This is not really a debate, in my opinion. This isn't really much of a discussion. The Thunder are going to smoke whoever ends up in that 8 seed. So I very confidently feel like the Thunder advance in the first round 4-0, 4-1. It's going to be quick. Moving on next, Nuggets, Clippers. Jokic is amazing. Jokic is a guy who is just, I've been saying his praises all season. Everyone has. And he is one of these guys who is going to end up he's in that greatest player of a franchise already. The things he's been able to accomplish in the NBA are incredible. He's already, if not, it's him and Hakeem and Dirk, maybe, as far as the best international player ever. Brilliant offensive player. I think we are going to have to start looking at him as a defensive liability because he is. But he does so much on offense that it is easy to overlook that. So, with that being said, though, I don't see how this Nuggets team has beat the Clippers. I thought the Nuggets, if they fell all the way down to the 6th seed, they had a chance against the Lakers because Jokic has historically dominated the Lakers, especially in the playoffs, and that could have just been a matchup thing. But this is going to get ugly real fast, in my opinion. The Clippers, Kawhi is playing like prime Kawhi, and prime Kawhi, essentially, Kawhi might be the only athlete where his prime is just health. Like, if he's healthy, he is prime Kawhi. And so, the Clippers, I think, take this series. So, we get a Thunder-Clippers matchup in round 2. Lakers, Timberwolves. I am not convinced. Now, here's the thing. And this is what's going to make my prediction probably sound outrageous. If this series is probably the one I'm the least confident in picking. And that is because if this series is 2-2, scratch that. I just had an epiphany. I was indecisive as hell about this series, and I was going to pick the Wolves for the reasoning of, but I thought the Lakers had a really good chance because I have said the case for the Lakers is going to be if you are 2-2 in a series and it's close in the 4th quarter and LeBron James and Luka Doncic are walking you down, LeBron's not going to feel pressure. He's one of the greatest players ever in the sport, and he's been here way too many times, so he's not going to have any issues with it. But how much pressure would it put on another team? I don't think Ant really subscribes to pressure. I think this is probably their worst matchup in regards to, I don't think Ant is going to be scared at the moment. I don't think Ant is going to be intimidated by the moment. I think there's a lot here that he's just going to be able to go and look. He's going to be, in my opinion, and we're going to have some real conversations after this, I know Luka Doncic is amazing. I know Luka is incredible. And I know LeBron, even still in year 22, is amazing. I think Ant's the best player in this series. I think he's going to show it. This is going to feel very similar to, remember, The Nuggets got swept last year when we all thought they were going to be the presumptive when they were the presumptive favorite to repeat as NBA champions, and they got swept by who? The Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think the advantage the Lakers should have had, which is experience, that feeling of pressure they can exert because they maybe have the two best ball handlers walking you down in the fourth quarter, I don't think it's going to exist here. Not saying that Luka or LeBron are going to struggle. I just think I think this is going to be simply one of those. He is going to outplay them, and I got the Timberwolves over the Lakers. That's not my favorite upset. Again, I think the Pistons are a better upset pick, but I do like T-Wolves over Lakers and Rockets, either Golden State or Memphis, whoever's that. Again, I think Golden State is getting overrated in a lot of these brackets and a lot of these predictions because we know who Steph is. We know who Draymond is. We know who Jimmy Butler is, but they're just no longer those guys. We are holding on to something that no longer exists. So even though the Rockets are young, I do like the Rockets to advance. Going over to the East, we're going to hit up the East tomorrow, but we're just doing the western side of our playoff brackets today. So the East, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow. If we do Thunder Clippers in the second round, here's the thing, guys. The Thunder are one of the most well put together teams, top to bottom. If you look at the Thunder, what they've got going, they're going to have the MVP. They're going to have a guy who's potentially third All-NBA in Jalen Williams. But is Williams, Holmgren, all these guys, their questions are their role players going to play in the playoffs the way they did in the regular season? I think that's actually, we discussed this a little bit on our group chat on Sunday, I think that's actually a bigger storyline than will Shea be officiated differently. Look, the whistles are different in the playoffs. No one's denying that. But SGA still was averaging over 30 in the playoffs last year. He's going to be the MVP this year. I don't think it's going to be so drastic where he just turns into a 20-point per game guy instead of a 30-point per game guy, and it just makes an entirely drastic dynamic, an entirely different team. I don't think that's the case. I think what we have is a guy who is going to have to adjust. I think he will. He is still an elite mid-range jump shooter. He is still elite at using his handle to get to the rim. And yeah, maybe he drops from 9-10 free throws a game to where he gets to 4 or 5 free throws a game. Remember, he still led the league in points per game, and he would have led the league in points per game without free throws. I am aware he gets those kind of calls that none of us as quote-unquote pure basketball fans enjoy seeing being called in the game, but you can't take away how great of a player he is. That being said, he is going against maybe his worst matchup. I think this Clippers team is really, really good. I know this is another trendy pick, and you'll probably be able to pick them apart if you really wanted to, the same way that I picked apart the Warriors as far as we are overrating what Kawhi is, and this is James Harden in the playoffs, which is kind of its own thing. But the way Harden has played this year, which is incredible. Like, James Harden's never missed the playoffs. That's an incredible stat for a guy who's played as long as he has now. 5 different teams, has never missed the playoffs. Kawhi, we know what he is in the postseason. I think this is close. And to be honest with you, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This is one of those pick'em series. Because, again, you're going to get in moments where are the Thunder going to get nervous down the stretch? I don't think the Clippers will. I think Harden's been here before, even though he's had struggles, but he doesn't have to be the guy anymore. Kawhi has been here. We've seen him multiple-time MVPs, multiple-time finals MVPs, championships with 2 different teams. There's a lot here about the Clippers that I like, and I think, again, the Thunder, while we see the trajectory and we see the total franchise and we see how good and how great they are, I'm rolling with the Clippers. You got the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. Timberwolves, Rockets. I do think this is where the Rockets' age is going to start to show. I'm a big Anthony Edwards fan. I think he is. I think where he's at currently in his career, this is a guy who is his idol. And this is according to him. I don't want to put words in his mouth. The guy who he modeled his game after is Kevin Durant. And now he's not as tall as Durant, which means I don't think he's ever going to be quite the offensive player Durant is, because so much of what makes Durant all-time unstoppable on offense is the fact that he's 7 foot, and you just can't do anything with his shot 99% of the time. Ant's not going to have that in his arsenal, but the fact that he is more athletic than Durant by a long shot. Like, if you look at his career highlights, like, he is flying to the rim, he's dunking on people, he's athletic as all hell, and now he's leading the NBA in three-pointers made. Like, this is a dynamic offensive player. I think this is Ant's going to be one of his big breakout moments. Again, last year they swept the Nuggets. They did lose to the Lakers. I think he's going to correct that demon by beating the Lakers and Luka in round one. He lost to the Mavericks. He lost to Luka last year, lost to the Mavericks. I think he's going to correct that, beating Luka and the Lakers this year. And the Rockets, who I think are great story. Ime is a great head coach. He's now doing it with his second franchise. All respect to him. All credit to him. But I got the Timberwolves advancing. And to represent the West in the finals, again, Kawhi, we've seen what he's done on these playoff runs before. Harden, this is where it's going to really dictate who is James Harden in the year 2025. Is James Harden the guy who still going to have the playoff issues that he's had in the past, where he goes on these extremely cold streaks where he can't make anything, he can't facilitate, he can't play make, you see the moment get to him, and is that going to overshadow, and is that going to be more of a problem than Kawhi can answer, which we know Kawhi has been brilliant in the playoffs, we know Kawhi has been spectacular in these moments, he's been clutch, he's been big time. What is going to prevail? Kawhi's greatness or James Harden's lack thereof in the postseason versus, again, a guy who I just think with I don't think people realize how great the Timberwolves have been the last 2 months. Remember, the Timberwolves to start the season, the first month and a half, weren't even playing play-in basketball. Think about that. Weren't even playing play-in basketball. I like Chris Finch a lot. I think he's one of the better head coaches that doesn't get he's never thrown in that great head coach conversation, and I think that's a shame. He should be in those conversations more. What he's done with Minnesota and the entirety of his time being there. And again, I think this is Ant's time. I think Luka had his playoff run, and I don't want to sound contradictory here. I think the Timberwolves are a really, really good team. I think what Conley offers them as just a stable point guard, Ant obviously is their star player, what Julius has been able to do to fit in after a very slow start to the season, Gobert, who we have to give credit to. I know we all like to crack jokes on Gobert, and a lot of it's deserved. But the way he's been playing, this team as a whole, this defense, their bench, this is a complete team. I know I'm singing Ant's praises a lot, but guess what? I'm wired to go, oh, you have the best player. That means a lot. And I think this is the year the Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards break through, and they are going to be the team representing the West in the NBA Finals. We are going to, tomorrow, be breaking down on the eastern side of the bracket who I think is coming through on that side. But, again, Timberwolves come out of the West. Couple upsets, I guess. Clippers over Nuggets is by seeding an upset, but I think the Clippers are just the better team. I think Jokic is amazing, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it enough this year. Timberwolves over Lakers, I guess that's also an upset, but again, these seeds are so close in the West. These records are so close that it's a 2-game gap, go 3-8. So it's not like you're having, a 65-win team lose to a 48-win team. Like, these teams are all really close together. They've all were in the same area as far as regular season, same space as far as how competitive and how good they were. But, yeah, I like the Timberwolves to come out of the Western Conference. Closing statement when we come back. This is HardFoul Radio. Let's fix ourselves real quick. Cool. All right. And we are back. Cool. And we are back. And it is time to close out today's episode. So here's my closing statement for how I think these somewhat how the playoffs are going to go, but more I think of a reality of the aftermath of the playoffs. And that is we are going to see some really good coaches get fired. We've already seen two in Taylor Jenkins and Michael Malone, both who I think can absolutely coach. And because of that, because of them being available, because of them being free agents and teams being able to sign them, if your team and your owner feels like you have a underwhelming playoff run, you are going to be liable to be shipped out. It's the reality. You have to compete now with a coach who turned the Grizzlies around, a coach who has an NBA title in Michael Malone. There are going to be good coaches who get fired. And that's because there's great coaches available on the market. It's one thing if you just have a bunch of unknown commodities, if you have guys who are great assistants but haven't proven it as head coaches. This is similar to players when there's great college prospects versus when there is known free agents. If there are known free agents who we know can play, who we know are available, they are more likely to take your job than the unknown college guy or the unknown assistant coach. So if you go through, we're just going through the bracket here, and you look at everybody, and I think it applies more on the east side than the west. Obviously, in the west, Memphis is going to be looking for a new long-term head coach, and so is Denver, but that's because they are currently on. They're the two who just fired their coaches, so they're not bringing those guys back unless you went to a funny flip-flop there. But in the east, you got to think about it. If you're the Pacers, the Bucks, the Knicks, even Orlando, Atlanta, are you guys just going to stand by and keep your current head coach if you know there is a championship-winning coach, Michael Malone, available on the market? Are you going to keep your guy and just stay doing what you're doing if Taylor Jenkins, who is a high-level coach, is on the market? How many coaches are actually safe in the NBA? Again, we've been over this last couple weeks. Out of the last 10, exclude last year, because it literally just happened. Out of the 10 coaches that have been in the previous 5 finals, Mike Budenholzer has been fired twice. Nobody else besides Spo and Steve Kerr is even with their same team. Some of them be rehired, but Nick Nurse won a title, been fired. Again, Budenholzer, been fired twice. Michael Malone's been fired. So Spo's been able to stay with the Heat, and Kerr's been able to stay with the Warriors, and those guys have multiple championships, and in Kerr's case was the head coach for a dynasty. So if you are currently an active head coach, your competition is not just who you're coaching against in an individual playoff series. Your competition is Taylor Jenkins, Michael Malone. You are coaching for your job if you have an unsuccessful. And this goes with what you really want as a head coach who's currently in the playoffs. You want a team like the Pelicans to, and I like Willie Green, so I hate saying this, but you want a team like the Pelicans to fire Willie Green and go right after Malone or Jenkins. And you want that situation to be resolved before the playoffs are done. If we get to the end of the postseason and neither of those guys are signed, they're coming for your job. We all know there's only 30 of these things. And those are two guys who have proven they can do this. In Malone's case, at the highest level, at Jenkins at a really high level. So you're not just coaching against whoever's on the other sideline. In the back of your mind, you got to think, if we don't perform, we don't do what we think we're capable of. And that doesn't mean every team, if your owner's semi-realistic. If you're the Atlanta Hawks, no one's expecting you to win a title. If you're the Indiana Pacers, no one's expecting you to win a title. But if you were to get swept or you were to lose 4-1, go out bad, have some really bad playoff games, especially at home in front of your fans and the owner, there's two really good coaches on the market, and they're looking at your job. Again, Budenholzer's been fired twice. Nick Nurse has been fired. We only got Spo and Kerr left. So the idea that your job can't be taken from you, and these are coaches who have made it to the finals, let alone coaches that have just been in the playoffs. They've made it to the finals, won championships. Is Jason Kidd, who is now going to be on that next list of guys of, okay, yeah, you did get to the finals, and even though we did trade away your superstar player, if the Mavs are struggling next season, are the Mavs going to keep Kidd? Coaching, and then you got, this is the craziest thing, we'll end on this. There's more security in coaching a bad team than there is coaching a really good to great team that just does not win a title. Chauncey Billups just re-signed with the Portland Trailblazers, and I think Chauncey's a good coach. I like what they're doing in Portland. He obviously does not have the talent to compete at the super high-end level, and I think what he's done is really good. But he's getting contract extensions for a team that was not very good or as far as a win-loss record. But Taylor Jenkins is getting fired. Michael Malone's getting fired a week before the playoffs. The job security is in coaching a bad team? Appreciate everybody for coming through today. Enjoying the new morning time. This is